Mama, what if the business and the life you want requires to let go of who you've always been? Today, I sat down with Paige Figueroa and we had a really powerful conversation about identity shifts, time freedom, and what it means to really take ownership over your own life. If you've been in a place of overwhelm or feeling unaligned, this one's for you. Hey, mamas, welcome back to Mamas Building Businesses. I am thrilled with the guest that I have here today. Paige Figueroa is the founder of Mom Boss Freedom and a copywriter and a twin mom. Paige, thanks so much for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me, Erica. I love what you're building, and I was like so stoked when I was able to book a chat with you and now be on here. So thank you.
I know it's so great to connect with other moms. And Paige was in like a nice, perfect setting, guys, but her pup is he's what, like has to be in his crate, right? From an
Yeah,
injury.
he's on crate rest. So I feel like you see all those reels about the most stimulating part of motherhood, and then it will like flip to the dog. That is very much true. The dog is even more needier than the kids. So
Yeah, so she moved. It's okay. We have the dog.
sitting.
He's not going to bark. He just wants her close. So, Paige, tell us a little bit about you as a business owner, a wife, a twin mom, a dog mom.
Yeah, I know. I feel like my motherhood journey really did start when I became a dog mom. But no, in all seriousness, I have a lot going on these days. So I used to take you back to the beginning of my journey as a business owner. I was an English teacher for 9 years. And then in 2021, I found out I was pregnant with twins, which was a big surprise. And I didn't realize at the time how much change was going to happen because of it being twins and not just one baby. But once the twins were here in 2022, then I had to like really figure out what I was going to do with my work situation because being a full-time teacher and then eventually having to go back to work, it was just like a lot to juggle. And of course, with daycare prices being so expensive these days, I was like, you're not going to be using my teacher salary to like just pay for full-time daycare. So this summer, my maternity leave, my babies were born in February. I had the rest of that school year off because they had a lot of like medical complications. So just going back to that school year was not an option really. So then over the summer, I was thinking about it. I knew I had to go back to school the next year because like financially we didn't have any other options. Like I needed to go back. But I was thinking like what can I do so that I can just have a little bit more flexibility and like be home with the kids because they still had some medical issues they were dealing with. And I figured out this way to start my own freelance copywriting business. So I like binge watched that whole program. I took like a business program to help me figure out how to even launch this business because I was an English and communication major in college, so I kind of like had a little bit of a marketing background and writing background, but I didn't quite understand how I could like turn it into a business. So that program really taught me how to do that, and then I started, taking baby steps throughout the school year. I was like working full time, managing having infant twins, and then in my like quote unquote free time, which was really me like sitting in the nursery or like walking the stroller, I would listen to these modules that were teaching me how to build a business. And then I also started like reaching out to clients and taking discovery calls on my lunch break at work. And then eventually, like, actually took on a couple clients while I was still working and would do a lot of projects like at night when the kids went to bed and stuff. So, that was like my journey of diving into entrepreneurship. And then after that last year in the classroom, I felt like confident enough in what I had built that I could leave teaching. So that's what I did. And then ever since then, I have been embracing the freedom of entrepreneurship. But since I was a teacher for so long, I feel like my purpose in life is to be like a teacher, a coach, a guide for others. So even though I was like at the beginning of my journey back then, I felt this like pull really early on to like help other moms realize how doable it actually is to start something of your own that allows you more flexibility with your time, especially when it comes to like work. So that's why I decided to start Mom Boss Freedom because I wanted a place where moms could come and feel supported in building what they're building for their version of freedom. Because I feel like the copywriting program that I was in, I really loved it so much, but I found pretty quickly that a lot of the people in there who were moms were struggling to like get something off the ground. So I'm sure you've experienced this and witnessed this too, but like as moms, we just have so much more on our plate than the average person. So trying to build something while also managing all of the stressors and just like realities of motherhood can be a lot. So that's why I'm drawn, I feel like that's probably why you're drawn to helping moms specifically, because I feel like we don't really like mesh into those secret formulas that might work for other people. Like we need a little bit more support and different support, I would say. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that it's so crazy because we have a lot more responsibilities. I
Hmm.
also think though, because we feel such a heavy responsibility to help, like to be there for our kids, but to help our families, we also have a lot more drive a lot of times. I think
Mm,
the big piece that where moms get stuck starting or stuck at a certain level of growth
yeah.
is that we want to be everything to everybody. And so we have a really hard time with prioritizing. Like,
Mm,
what are the
mhm.
things that are most important to me and my family? And we almost never ask the question, what are the most important things to me, right?
Yeah.
Because we're just like naturally selfless. So it's like I have to be here for my husband, I have to show up for my kids, I have to do this, but then I have to make time for this business, and it makes you feel very, very scattered.
Hmm.
Because you just want to be everything to everybody. So
Yeah.
it's like all those things are positives. It's just we kind of have a hard time, I think, organizing like
Yeah,
the hierarchy of them.
definitely.
So it's really interesting. So okay, so you started Mom Boss Freedom. So tell us a little bit about that. Like you
Yeah.
obviously help moms, but in what area specifically do you help them? Where do you feel your greatest strengths are?
Yeah, for me, it really stems, the way that I try to support other moms stems from what I struggled with the most in my journey. And that was having the energy, kind of like we were talking about, like with prioritizing, having the energy to do everything that I wanted to do. And I mean energy in both like a physical sense with like your body having enough energy, but also like your spirit and like your like mental capacity to take things
Mhm.
on throughout the day. So I really like supporting in that like energy standpoint, but then also the mindset and identity piece because a lot of the women I work with, I feel like tend to be high achievers. And when you're going from, especially having like potentially a really successful career before starting your business, and then kind of almost starting back at square one and building something new, it can feel like a big identity shift and it can feel scary, especially once if you stop working your full-time job and make the full-time switch or the full-time leap into entrepreneurship, there's just a lot of like identity work to excavate and like rework. And I feel like the world has really done a number on us women mentally, and just like the way we view ourselves. So, those are the two areas of strength that I feel like I bring when it comes to a coaching setting is like the energy piece and also the identity work that goes behind what you are trying to build, why you're trying to build it. And I love the piece that you mentioned earlier about the prioritizing, um, because that is so much in a big part of our energy and like we can't just like create more time in our day, right? But we can do a better job of shifting where our focus is and where we are deciding to allow our energy to go. And that's something that my therapist actually worked with me a lot on this past fall. She's like, you cannot prioritize everything because I'm trying to get over some old perfectionist tendencies. So it's like I want to be good in every area of my life, right? But she's like, pick your top two priorities and then everything else from there, you have to kind of like backtrack. It's not that you're lowering your standards per se, it's just like you're being really intentional about what your values are at this particular point in time and how you are going to help yourself be more successful in like making those priorities actually happen and like letting everything else kind of just at least stay afloat. So, yeah.
So there are so many things in what you said. So back to the identity piece really quick, because I definitely personally have struggled with this. So 8 years ago, I left corporate and
Hmm.
then, excuse me, during the pandemic, I closed my first business, which was a brick and mortar. And then I built an agency. And then this past year, I've closed that agency in order to focus on this.
Hmm.
And I think maybe back then, because I was so like in the hustle bustle, like I wasn't in the, what's really aligned for me and those sort of things.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like it was as big of an identity shift for me. But going from having like my agency to focusing on this community, it was a massive identity shift for me. And I knew that this was what I was supposed to do. I know that it's what I meant to do. But I really think that because my agency had been so successful, I think I really like, as much as I knew that that wasn't for me anymore, I was really burnt out. I was really overwhelmed, all the things. I was making an active choice to step away from that. Um, I think I really grieved it. I
Yeah.
think that I really, really I was like, I don't want this anymore. And that was exciting. But I think I grieved it. I also think that it, kind of that imposter syndrome, which we all deal with, at different times. And you hear that term like thrown around so much. But because focusing on this community was so different than having
Mhm.
like a service-based marketing business, which I had worked in marketing for a million years, right? So it was sort of second nature to me. Um, I really got this imposter syndrome. And even though I knew that this was what I was supposed to do, like no doubt, I had a hard time getting started. And I've never
Hmm.
really been somebody who has a hard time getting started. Um, but I went through that and I think there were so many aspects of that identity shift. I think a big part of it too was just like my own pride, which is kind of hard to admit because
Hmm.
I don't I don't think I'm normally a very prideful person, but I think like part of my pride was like, well, how do I tell people that like I'm starting over? They're going to think my
Mm.
business was a failure, and it wasn't. It was very successful. I just for me, it was burnt out. I was burnt out. I was overwhelmed, and when I really took a step back and looked at like the time I wanted to spend with my kids, the time I wanted to have to travel, it just wasn't aligned with my life
Yeah.
and the impact, right? So for me, I think you and I talked about that when we first met. Like a big part was the impact. Like I was doing all this work, but my cup wasn't being filled because I didn't really feel like I was making an impact,
Yeah.
right? And so it's crazy. And I think those are things that people don't realize when they get into business ownership.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't occur. If anybody is listening, you've probably heard me say this a million times, but I think people think, oh, I'm going to start a business. And so I just need to learn all these business skills and I'll be
Oh my gosh.
successful.
Yeah.
Like it's all about the skill. And my experience, and I would love to hear yours, but my
Hmm.
experience has been that it has been way more of like a spiritual, personal development journey than anything else because you're just forced to face everything about yourself.
Yeah. No, I 1,000% had the same exact experience with the identity and like the personal growth and spiritual journey. Like literally the course that I took to start my own business for copywriting, a freelance copywriting business, the very first module was about like mindset and stuff. And literally I think I would have been okay with paying the amount of money that I paid for that course just for that one module because I feel like it was like a wake up call for me of like oh my gosh, like I actually have so much more power in my life to do what I want to do than I ever imagined. But like after that initial like awakening, it was a lot of work to like get to the point where I am now. Like you were saying, like you knew for a while that you wanted to do something, but it's not that it's like hard to do it. It's like you know logistically what the steps are and what the pieces are, but it's like the internal work that takes the real work and the real heavy lifting to get yourself ready and in a place mentally and emotionally and spiritually to like be able to hold the new dream that you're trying to bring to fruition. So I very much have the same experience. And the identity piece is so interesting too because One of my I another business that I actually started that's more of a seasonal business. And this I started about 6 months after my freelance copywriting business is a college admission essay coaching business. And I feel like the reason I started that business, because I'm actually at the point where I'm like, I don't want to have three businesses at the same time. It's too much. But I feel like back in the day when I was still in the beginning of my journey, I felt like I started that because I still had my teacher identity attached to it. And it like gives me a way to like not fully let that go yet. And I actually just had a client out of nowhere book like an admission essay editing with me the other day. And I was like, oh my gosh, like is this the universe being like, you need to make a choice now? Do you want to like keep doing this or what? So that's like an interesting identity piece that I'm at like a crossroads with even to this day, a couple years into my journey. But it's like a constant like peeling back of layers of yourself. And I feel like you can't truly get to, I think the cool thing about business and just looking at your journey, for instance, is like there it is a journey, right? Like you didn't start at this, mama's building businesses right away because you weren't ready with your identity to
No, I
like
wasn't.
hold the amount of just like the supportive you needed to go through those experiences first to even be able to like get have this vision for yourself and for other moms, but to also like be the person that is able to hold that dream. So it's cool to like see other moms' journeys and like how they go through different businesses and like one business closes, and then you eventually get to where you're going. So I feel like for me, copywriting was like my way into the door because was an English major. I was an English teacher. Like I could write. And then the admission essay coaching business was like, well, I know how to coach kids on writing a college admission essay. Like I can monetize that easily. And now as I keep peeling back these layers and going deeper into my own spiritual journey and professional growth journey, I'm like getting closer to what it is I feel like I'm really called to do. And I'm excited about Mom Boss Freedom because I feel like it's like the culmination of the identity work that I've done and how I feel like I am truly meant to support other moms in this space. So, yeah, I
Yeah,
love that
it
you like shared a little bit more about your journey of the identity piece because it's a big challenge for sure.
well, it's a huge challenge. And I think the part that people don't realize is when you have a business, if you're not willing to reflect and look at yourself, like you're just not going to succeed. You're
Yeah.
just not like, excuse me, you can only blame circumstance or blame the client or blame like so much because at the end of the day, and I even tell this to my kids all the time, right? So my daughter's in grad school, my son's an athlete, and I'm like, look, at the end of the day, the only person you can control is you.
Yeah.
So if you're in a situation and you can't change a situation, you have to change how you approach it.
Hmm.
Like the only person you can control is you. And so that piece is, I mean, it's just massive. And I think that a lot of us just, I've been talking to so many moms. A lot of us, we start out like in entrepreneurship as doing what we know, but
Yeah.
then eventually our journey becomes becoming who we needed,
Yeah.
right? Because for me, that's definitely the case. Like the whole concept of mamas building businesses came because I really didn't have anybody around me who was in business for themselves. I
Yeah.
really didn't have anybody around me that was like on that path that I wanted to be on. And so, I took a very long, hard road with a lot of pivots. And don't get me wrong, in the last several years, since I've been able to afford to, I've really invested in my own growth. And, you
Hmm.
invest in the programs, in the business programs that are out there. There are so many incredible ones. But to your point, they don't take into account all of the things that moms
Yeah.
also deal with, right? Most of them are tailored to, and this is no, we don't do any men bashing on this channel. Um, but most of them are tailored to men, and they're
Yeah.
mostly tailored to people who their only focus is their business,
Yeah.
right? That's like the only plate that they're spinning.
Hmm.
And so we as moms, we are just spinning so many more plates. Like the kids, the home, if you have a husband or a partner,
Hmm.
like if your kids are involved in sports, that adds another plate, right? Because there's fundraising and there's just all kinds of things that we're always adding. So, what I had a really specific question I wanted to ask you, and I don't know if you remember this moment or not, but I would love to know because teachers, as far as 9 to 5 jobs, teachers have really good schedules.
No.
You don't know because they take
Not
so
in
much
my
work home.
experience. No. Sorry, I'll let you ask the rest of the
No,
question.
it's okay. Is it because you take so much stuff home?
Yes, and yes.
Were you a high school English teacher?
I started the first 5 years that I taught, I was actually a seventh grade teacher in New Jersey. And it was actually a charter school. It was in the middle of inner city Newark. And our hours were, we had to, I think our hours were 7 to 5. So already much different schedule. Not only that, I would be there from like 6 to 6. The first year that I was teaching, I was there for 12-hour days. And then I was still doing work at home, still doing work on the weekends. And English especially like is very, lots of papers to read and things like that. So on paper, yes, it is not like your typical 9 to 5%. You do get more holidays and you get the summer. But I feel like that actually is a big misconception is like so many teachers pour so much more time into it than you could ever imagine, just like looking at their schedule, which is actually, I think, looking back on it, is part of the reason I got into teaching in the first place. So my sister was a teacher and she's older, so she's 3 years older. So I kind of saw her and I was like, oh, summer's off. That sounds nice. And for me, like, I think my personality is very drawn to things that give me more freedom. Just I've always been that way. So I was like, yeah, I want the freedom of having my summers off. That sounds amazing. But I quickly realized that, like, it is nice to a point, but there's a lot of other ways that you don't have freedom. Um, so to go to your question, what you were saying something about like the 9 to 5
Well,
schedule.
so first of all, I'm going to retract what I said because I have some friends who are teachers. Admittedly, they're like pre-K, fourth grade, so they're not doing as much
Yeah.
out of class stuff as you were
Yeah,
doing.
very different.
Um, but my question is, did do you remember the moment or the feeling that you had when you first realized what it was like to control your own time?
Oh, yeah. The first moment. I think there were two shifts. So I think the first shift was just like straight up the moment I was kind of describing earlier when I watched this first module. When I was on my maternity leave, I remember I was outside on my back deck and it was summertime and the sun was shining and I was just laying there and hanging out with I had the kids and bouncers outside with me. And I was listening to this module about your mindset. It was literally like one simple little lesson. It was so life-changing. I was like, wow, I can really just do whatever I want. Like this can be the dream. So that was like the first realization that like this can be possible. And like the first moment that I actually remember like being then a full-time entrepreneurship or entrepreneur and realizing this is great, I feel like was the first year after um I would just like randomly wake up on a Monday morning and decide with the babies, like, let's go to the orchard. That was like one of my favorite activities to do with the kids. And like the freedom of being able to wake up on, let's say, like a Tuesday morning and just be like, ah, I don't have to rush anywhere. Because that was a big, big thing for me, was just the constant rushing around of like waking up really early, already being tired, having to get the kids ready, rushing myself off to work, rushing home, trying to get them to bed. It was just so much rushing around. So like to be able to wake up, take a deep breath in the morning and just be like, the only thing on the agenda this morning is to like take the kids to the orchard and then I can like fit my copywriting client work in when they're taking their nap or like when they go to bed. Yeah, that realization for me, I was like, ah, this is what it's all about. Like, this is why I decided to like put myself through all this work, both logistically and like behind the scenes identity wise, because it's like I get to have amazing days like this where I am the one making my schedule and doing what I want to do with my kids.
It's funny when you have that moment of like, I'm an adult. I could literally do whatever I want right now. Like nobody
Yeah.
for me, I feel like that was how I felt like, oh wow, I am a grown up. I do get to decide because I did have my daughter young. So I had her when I was 17. And so I have been a mom and I have been working like literally since before I was an
Hmm.
adult, right? And so when I had that moment of like feel like I really felt it probably when, not even when I first started my own business, but like when my daughter went away to college because my son was a little older, like she was away, so my son's like more independent. And I have this moment of like no kids, which of course I've never
Yeah.
had. And I'm like, what do people do when they don't have anything to do? Like,
Yeah.
so weird. But I feel like I have experienced it all over again since starting the community because
Hmm.
um, with my agency, I would wake up in such a stress and rush of whatever was still on my mind from the day before that I
Yeah.
would just get up and get to it. And now I'm like, I have slow mornings. Like I'm typically up for like 2 hours before I even sit down at my computer,
Yeah.
which for me is amazing. So I I think that it's one of those things it's hard to describe unless you've experienced it. And it is by far like what I want most for more moms is the
Yeah.
opportunity to slow down and make decisions and take their kids to the orchard and they don't have
Yeah.
to worry about the financial piece as
Hmm.
much. I mean, we all worry about finances. We all set goals to different extents, but just having the choice to do that because our society has conditioned us so much to believe that we can only make money if we're willing to give up all of our time.
Yeah.
And when you have
And
kids,
the
that's hard.
and the way you framed it too of like I'm an adult, like I get to choose my schedule. I remember my last year of teaching. Um, I felt like a herd of sheep almost. At 3, I think we had to be there till 3. This was when I was in high school teaching then. We had to be there till 3:30 was our contracted hours. And I literally remember teachers lining up at their own individual classes like a couple minutes before 3:30 and staring at the clock like waiting until
Like
they were
waiting for the bell to
allowed
ring.
allowed to leave, right? And I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm an adult. I did my work for the day. Like, why can't I just leave? And I remember like pushing the limits a little bit like that last year because I knew I wasn't going to be coming back and I would just be like, I'm just leaving a couple minutes early because I'm in charge of my life. Like what's the worst thing that they're gonna do? They're gonna tell me like you shouldn't leave 5 minutes early. Well, I was done with my work. So like that piece, just to like contrast what we're talking about of that moment of experiencing that freedom for yourself, I also very much remember what it was like not having that. And I'm like, I never want to go back to that ever again. Like, why do I have to ask another adult permission to go home to my children when I already did all my work for the day? So, yeah, being on the other side of that now, I'm like, whew, like so many more moms need to be able to like have the ability to cross over this bridge to like get away from that because I feel like with all the things that we're juggling, there's so much more opportunity now to be around for the moments of motherhood that we really want to be around for.
So, to that point, I mean, I know all businesses and in life in general has so many different seasons.
Hmm.
What does balance look like for you right now? Because you
Yeah.
have these businesses going on. You're shifting kind of to mom boss freedoms, right, from
Hmm.
copywriting, and you have twins who are about to be 4 next
They're
next
about
month.
to be 4. Yeah.
So what does balance look like for you right now?
Um, I don't know if I think I heard this from another mom. I'm in a local moms and business group, and the one gal who runs it, she says, I don't like to use the word balance, I like to use the word harmony because balance kind of insinuates that it's like this like perfect like half and half situation almost or whatnot. But right now for me, the harmony that I've struck is I did get to we did get to a place at this point where my kids go to part-time daycare in the morning, which has been really helpful for me because my almost 4-year-olds are full of energy and I feel like the first year when I was like home with them by myself and they didn't do any daycare, it was just really a lot to manage and it felt very chaotic because I being with them all day just like took so much mental and physical energy. So for me right now, I will wake up and what you were saying, I don't have to rush off. Their daycare doesn't start, we don't drop them off until just before 9. So I have like a really nice unrushed morning with them. We take them to daycare. I usually will go work when I'm not confined to the crate here with my dog. I'll usually go work at like Panera or like a local library where I don't have to pay money for coffee and just sit down and do work for 2, 3 hours. Then I'll go pick them up. Then we have the afternoon and we hang out together. And then I'll do a little bit more work in the evening sometimes when they go to bed. So I probably really only work, I would say 15 to 20 hours a week right now. A lot of that time is spent still on copywriting client work, and then I do devote several hours a week to that now, and taking on new coaching clients and just doing all the things behind the scenes that I need to build for that business, like social media and like the logistical platforms that you need to start. So that's what my harmony looks like right now. I feel really good about that right now, but I am excited to eventually start taking my client work from my copywriting clients, take that off my plate so that I can devote even more of my time and energy to the coaching business because that is what I'm really passionate about. And there was one more thing I wanted to say about that too. Oh yeah, the thing that I'm trying to keep reminding myself is I don't know if you've ever felt this way, but I feel like I have such a like clear vision of what I want to build, but I know it can't happen overnight. And I like really try to remind myself to be patient because Mom Boss Freedom is like, I feel like it's like my third baby. I wouldn't say my other two businesses were ever my baby. Like I did create them, but like this is what I feel like like the most passionate about. And I'm like, the baby has to go through all the stages first, right? Like you have to like learn to crawl, you have to learn to walk, then you do all of the other milestones after. And so I'm trying to like be at a place where I'm not rushing that for myself, especially with my kids only really having another like year and a half before they go off to kindergarten. We haven't exactly decided what that will look like for us. We'll probably do public school. So like I'm also trying to remind myself like don't rush this part because where I'm at right now is exactly where I wanted to be. I wanted to have all of this time with my kids before, they go off to school and I don't get to be with them as much during the day. So, yeah, so that's what harmony looks like for me right now. And it is a little bit of a constant like check in with myself of like, am I trying to rush too fast? Like, am I putting too much time into the business where I'm like maybe pulling away from more time that I want with my kids? So I think the other thing here is I've also tried to learn not to be too hard on myself when I feel like I'm not in that balance, but also recognizing like, okay, we need to check in with ourselves. Like, if we're feeling a little extra anxious this week, like, is it because the way I'm spending my time isn't really in line with like what I actually want to be doing right now and what I'm valuing most right now? So, yeah.
I really love that you highlighted checking in with yourself because that for sure has been my biggest lesson in
Hmm.
in having businesses. It's why I was so burnt out and overwhelmed
Yeah.
in my marketing agency because it's very easy to get caught up in like this systemic, like, this is what I'm supposed to do next. So, this is, like for me, we would hit goals. And so we would just make bigger goals. And I
Yeah.
was never like, do I want this? Do I want to
Hmm.
manage a team of more people? Do I want to take on, and the problem with doing that, especially in business, in your regular life too, like in your family life, but especially in business, is because once you have like set that, like, oh, this is what I'm going to accomplish, you put this really sometimes unnecessary pressure on yourself,
Oh my gosh, yes, for sure.
And so it's like you're literally killing yourself to hit these goals that when you really think about it, you don't really care about.
Yeah.
And so it really like checking in with yourself constantly is so important. And I'm such a huge advocate of it now. Um, so, okay, to bring things full circle, what is one piece of advice that you would give the mama who wants to start a service-based business, but maybe she doesn't feel like she has the time, the energy, or the confidence yet?
Yeah. I would definitely say that number one, if you are feeling a call to start a business, it's for a reason, right? Like that is meant for you. And that's I guess that's my first piece of advice is to like trust yourself. Like that's not coming to you out of nowhere. That like is your higher self being like, this is meant for you. And that nudge is only going to keep getting stronger if you try to ignore it. So like lean into that, like allow yourself to trust yourself, even if you don't know exactly how everything is going to unfold. Just trust that you can like start taking baby steps to at least put yourself on the path that you're wanting to. And then the other piece of it is with the time and energy piece, because you said like how can you even like how can you even have the time to make this happen? Is to do almost like a little bit of like a life audit. Like look at where you're actually spending your time and then get a little creative, like figuring out like, okay, I'm spending all this time doing laundry and dishes and like doing XYZ with the kids and maybe doing things for work outside of work hours. So like just really like taking an objective look at your life and how you're spending your time and then seeing what are some things that you can cut out. For me in the beginning, I used to watch Netflix a lot at the end of the day and it was like, okay, well, I'm gonna stop doing that or cut back on that and use 30 minutes of that time to devote towards my dream. So it was almost like a habit shift of um, figuring out where my time was going and then how can I creatively steal 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 20 minutes there, and like make it my part of my identity that like I am a person who spends time on the things that matter to her. And so, yeah, it would be really a self-trust piece and then being creative with how you are spending your time and being cognizant of like if your time is going to places that are not really in line with your values. So yeah, there are always creative, and I actually have I think I shared this with you. There are always creative ways to find more not necessarily definitely find a little bit more time in your schedule. Obviously, not a lot, especially if you're a mom, because there are certain things you just like can't take off your schedule. But when it comes to being more creative with your energy, I know we talked about that a little bit. I do have a freebie called Five Ways to Re-Energize Your Business as a mompreneur. And it's helpful to look through whether you've started your business yet or you're like in the early stages, a growth stage. It's just a way for you to kind of do some of those things I talked about, like reflecting on where your time is going and how you can use your energy in a way that's more empowering instead of feeling like you're like a victim to your schedule every day and like there's not enough time to do the things that really matter to you.
That's incredible. So, for anybody listening, I will make sure that we put the link to your freebie in the description. And then, just a side note for you, every Friday in the Mamas Building Businesses community, I schedule a post that is a thread. It's called Free Resource Friday. So, you can always
Amazing.
share that link on there too,
Fabulous.
every Friday. So, for anybody who is interested in connecting with Paige, we will have her links in the bio or not in the bio, in the description of the video to connect with her on social media. And we will put a link for her free resource. And if you are enjoying these conversations, don't forget to like and subscribe so that we can keep having them. And Paige, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here.
Yes, thank you too. I feel like these are the kinds of calls that we talked about energy. Like this is what raises my energy throughout the week. So like even if it's something that takes time, it's still adding energy back to my plate. So I loved being on here with you and having this chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much.